Hi, I'm Travis Ray, Director of Channel Sales, Overwatch by Highwire Networks. I'm joined by Peter Ritter, Senior Manager of Strategic Alliances at Automox, and Phil Burnett, Chief Information Security Officer at Highwire Networks. We're going to be talking today about strengthening endpoint security with visibility and remediation. So let's get started. Peter, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Great. Well, first, before I get into that, I just want to thank Highwire for inviting Automox to this. Great to be part of your virtual conference here today. So again, thank you very much on the behalf of everybody at Automox. So my role here is to work with great partners with you guys and a couple other partners in the Alliances team. Back over to you, Travis.
Cool. Yeah. So what is Automox? What are you guys all about?
Yeah, so Automox is both a patch management and configuration management vendor. So this is something that personally I've been involved with for more than 20 years. So back in the early 2000s, I was working for a data center for small banks and credit unions. And that's when both state and federal auditors realized that the hackers were taking advantage of those vulnerabilities that were announced, but not actually deploying the patches. So they needed a kind of a patch management solution. And that's where I sort of started that service for our community banks and credit unions, delivering at first those Microsoft patches, but then expanding into third-party patching and also helping a little bit with the configuration management. So that's, after doing that for about 10 years or so, kind of switched into a sales and engineering role with the vendor that I was using at that time. And then after 15 years, I kind of left the patch management space and went a little bit deeper into next generation endpoint security. So again, stay in the same area, but really kind of understanding, hey, what are the new ways to protect customers' computers? And kind of how that works. And again, worked with both partners, alliance type partners, and direct customers. And now I've come back into patch management here at Automox. And great to be back in this space, great to be able to provide a service. But unlike what I did, 15, 20 years ago, Automox is a brand new company, right? About 5 years old. And like a lot of companies that have started in the last 10 years or so, we are completely in the cloud, or what we call cloud native. And so what that means is that for our partners and for our customers, there is no infrastructure that you need to purchase or maintain. When I was doing this 15, 20 years ago, I had to get Windows servers, I had to get a dedicated SQL server, I had to have enough storage for all of the patches and kind of build everything out myself. And then as new versions of the OS came out or new versions of SQL, had to procure those, do the upgrades. So a lot of work and maintenance went into that. And by working for somebody that is cloud native for our customers and for our partners, none of that exists anymore, right? We take care of that, everything for our customers that way. And now just give you an admin console directly to the customer or to the partners to be able to deliver those patches or configuration management. And that's really kind of what we've done with our product, right? We kind of focus in those two pillars. And I want to spend a couple more seconds kind of talking about those two pillars and kind of the differences between them and how they can help, with strengthening endpoint security and actually, giving that visibility and the remediation. So that remediation kind of does fit in very nicely with patches. I think most people are comfortable with that. We've been using Windows, Macs, and Linux computers for quite some time now, and we also have iPhones and Android. So I think everybody's kind of familiar with the idea of that humans are not perfect, and as we create these programs, either there's a misconfiguration, a bug, or there are things that are set up in that program, regardless of the platform, that hackers can take advantage of. So that's what a vulnerability is. And as those get announced, you want to remediate that, right? You want to take care of that. But you need a tool that's going to give you that visibility. And that is certainly one of the pillars that we do here at Automox, right? We give you that visibility to the missing patches or the patches that are implied to your environment. and give you that tool to actually remediate or push those patches out. Now, in addition to doing the patches, there's also the second pillar, and that's around configuration management. Think of something like a simple configuration, like maybe your screensaver, right? You want your employees' computers to lock out after 15 minutes. You can control that with a policy on any of the major operating systems. And that's what we can also do here at Automox. We have the ability to push out those policies and kind of give you that visibility and also that remediation in terms of security configuration. And we can also do this on a continuous basis. So it's not like a one-time, hey, let's deploy it and let's hope that it worked. It is, both for our patches and our remediation, we have the ability to verify that with a scan at least every day, if not every 6 hours, to verify that those things are in place. And if they're not, then we can push it back out, right? Either deploy that patch again or push out a script to make that change to ensure that those policies are where they need to be so that you have the strongest endpoint security.
Awesome. Before we go back to Peter or Phil, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you as well?
Sure. Glad to be here. I don't know how many of our listeners out there were able to tune into the opening presentation and discussion with Bob Bigman, but he talked a lot about hygiene, about protecting the endpoints, about the things you got to do. And Automox, as a partner of ours, does exactly that. My background, I've been in IT security for about 30 years with major manufacturing, with healthcare, a lot in the manufacturing in the most recent years. But it seems like the themes are all the same, right? You need to take care of what you have, keep the bad guys out. An important part that Bob mentioned this morning was the 0 days, right? So what Automox helps us do and our partners is we take care of all the buckets of patching, right? And if you think about it for a minute, what kind of patching buckets are there? You have hot fixes. Those are things are corrupted. You need to make functionality work. You have point releases. You got incremental .1, .2, .3. Maintenance releases, security patches is the big one. And then service packs. When you do a service pack, think of all the time and effort and all the teams. I can remember as a CISO at organizations having the leader of the infrastructure team come to me and say, man, we have so much going on in operations. I don't know if I have time to patch. And then I pull out the thing and say, well, look, here's the breaches this week. Are you sure you want to make that decision? And we talk about risk, right? Well, this is part of a risk management strategy that every company out there should follow. They should look at balance the risk with the reward. And if you're patched and you're doing everything that you should be doing, the bad guys still have a better than 50-50 chance of poking a hole in you, right? I mean, VPNs, if they're not configured properly, all the other things that Bob mentioned this morning. We have a lot of work to do. And I think the beauty of it is you think of a stack of needles and you're looking for a green needle in a stack of needles. Well, if we patch, that helps us find that green needle in the stack, because I tell you what, it's not easy. And you can't just walk into an environment and become a security expert. You have to learn. You have to take some shots and you have to figure out how to respond. But the whole point is to think quick and react quickly. And I think automated patching like Automox helps us identify and move the fog of war, if you will, out of the way so we can focus on making money, doing what we got to do as a business, but also keeping it safe and secure. What we want to do is the bad guys move on down the road. Go beat on somebody else. Don't pick on my network.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's all about managing risk and not being low-hanging fruit for the cyber criminals, right? If you can make it difficult enough for them, they'll go on to find an easier target, right? So, there's there's a ton of security tools for every layer of security out there. What makes Automox different?
Yeah, so I touched on it a little bit earlier, right? We definitely cloud native. And one advantage of that is now with a lot more people working from home, we're not reliant on that VPN connection, right? So, a lot of these older tools out there that have been around for 10, 15 years started off like I did, right? With an on-prem or, needed a server and needed some things out there. And a lot of companies are using, one product for Windows, another for Mac, and then a third one for Linux. So, very complex, multiple tools, they're all on-prem, and they require that VPN connection, right? Those workers now that are home need to securely connect back to the office and actually be able to have those tools work. So being cloud native allows us to get around that limitation, and we are one tool for 3 operating systems, making it much easier for both our partners and our customers to have the visibility and the ability to kind of push those patches out.
Yeah, it's definitely all about that visibility right now. So tell us a little bit about the Automox logo that we got up here. It's pretty cool. Like, what's the story behind that?
Yeah, so we've been called Automox for quite some time now, but at the beginning of this year, we decided to have some fun and kind of introduce a new logo, and I think it really kind of shows what we can do with our product, right? As Phil was saying earlier, it's also about not just having the visibility and the capability to do this, but also the automation, right? So that's kind of why we went with a robot here, to show you that we can not only kind of get those patches out to you, but we can also automate this, right? Make this very easy for both our partners and our customers to go ahead and very quickly deploy, especially those critical patches. And so we now have what we call Auto, is our kind of new mascot and logo for Automox.
Very cool. I like it. It stands out. So just real quick before we move on, I just wanted to talk a little bit about Overwatch and who we are as well, right? Overwatch is a master MSSP or managed security service provider, and we're 100% channel only. What that really means is that we help managed service providers fill gaps in their security offerings with those more advanced security services that they can't deliver on their own in-house, and we help them also with their bottom line by outsourcing some of those more traditional managed security services that with our security expertise, we can do more efficiently and at a lower cost for them. So kind of twofold there. We're really focused and partner centric, being channel only. And our 24/7 SOC is vendor agnostic, which is a big deal for partners. That allows them to basically bring their own stack. And then we have our own services like our automated patch management service with Automox, where we have gone out and vetted some of the best technologies that are the best fit for in the channel to be able to provide some of those services that maybe MSPs will not outsource that they could be doing already, or just rely on a partner that can do all that heavy lifting on the security side for them, since most managed service providers are fantastic IT generalists. And their customers might have, some IT folks on staff, but they don't have those subject matter experts and security focused people, and we do. So that's where we come in and help them. So let's move on and keep talking here. Well, actually, let me ask Phil about patch deployment and some examples and some of the benefits of that.
Sure. As I said earlier, we're trying to reduce the fog of war, because cyber is really, it's a war. We have nation states. We have all the bad guys. Basically, they're after data and after money. Bob mentioned earlier in that in the opening dialogue was that China is after information while other guys are after money. Well, we don't have the liberty or the luxury to decide one or the other. We have to protect against them stealing both, right? 57% of data breaches were related to just poor patch management. So if you can take that off the table, then you have to, then you go after the other things, but configuration being the next one. So from a 24/7 managed service, we get eyes on glass. We're like you said, vendor agnostic. We take in data from every kind of platform you can imagine. And if it's one-off or something, we build those custom connectors and get that data in. And we're able to work with the partners to develop custom reports, custom alerts, the things that they need and know. We help build and design those, working with our partners like Stellar to come in and get things made exactly for you. But I think because we're channel only, we're able to give it economically, right? We're not just like you're selling to one person where, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in some of my previous organizations just for a single SIM, right? And the staff, all those things, plus the training. Our 24/7 SOC, I'm pretty hard on the guys. I have a couple learning management systems that I've subscribed to that require them at least quarterly to complete 2 pretty complicated type of trainings in both networking and data and computers, and also keeping current on SOC analyst skills and techniques to complement what our partners are doing. Like Automox, they're qualified in running it, managing it, performing what they need to do. So we take that across the spectrum against our complete portfolio to make sure that we are a trusted partner and a trusted advisor, and we help the MSP by identifying any gaps that the end client may have to help the partner be able to go back to them and say, hey, here's the gap analysis. This is something additional you might need that you may not even thought of, right? It's just nice to be able to feed that back and forth and have a reciprocal type of agreement and arrangement with our partners. So we're here to make them successful and also to be successful ourselves in delivering a service that's holistic for everybody.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's a big need out there. And part of that too is the risk of those unpatched vulnerabilities. We've had some numbers up here on the screen for the audience to digest a little bit. Tell us more about the time to patch here and some of these statistics, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite scary about how long it's taking people or organizations to actually deploy these patches. And the average time is over 3 months. Now, I mean, I get it, right? I ran a service. You guys are doing a service. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of different pieces to security. And there's also only so much time in the day, right? As Phil was saying earlier, businesses are out there to make money. And if you're deploying patches and rebooting computers on your employees, that's going to prevent them from doing what the business needs to do. But at the same time, waiting 3 months to get those patches out there really opens up you for a lot of risk, because it only takes less than a week for the bad guys to actually create something to exploit that. I mean, it's quite honestly making it very easy for them, right? Again, we're all human. People who are creating these programs make mistakes or don't realize that, there is a way that you can take advantage of things. And they do the great thing, right? They understand that, hey, there's a problem here. There's a vulnerability. We're going to announce it. They're going to make a patch available. But that kind of gives the recipe to the bad guys. Now they know that, hey, this front door is unlocked, or this is the opening that I can get into. And we've seen this for over 20 years now, where they can take advantage of this and get right into that network. And it's just happening faster and faster, right? So they only need a week or less to kind of go out there and create a new exploit when a vulnerability or patch gets released. So yeah, we definitely got to find a way to reduce that time. And that's what we're doing here at Automox. And again, we have those automated policies, and we're seeing that our customers and partners are getting that down to less than 24 hours. But there's more to this, right? It's not just the automation, right? You need something like an Overwatch service to really understand those patches, to build that whole kind of policy and the deployment, maybe the testing that needs to be in there to make sure you're doing this in the right way, because sometimes a vendor does release a bad patch, right? So having somebody like Overwatch help you in those situations to kind of overcome that, or actually build that all out and actually, execute this for you on your behalf, is how you're going to get those unpatched vulnerabilities taken care of in less than a day.
Yep. It's all about having the right tools and the right people, right? You can't wield the tool effectively if you don't have the right person with the tool in their hands. So real quick, just wanted to say to the audience, free to ask any questions. We're going to be doing a Q&A at the end. You can submit those now, and we'll get to them with time permitting later on. So be sure to get those in. So I love this slide just because the animation is really cool, and this is really what it's like for security teams when it comes to patching. Right, there's a new one every day, and it's like playing whack-a-mole, only you don't get the tickets and a prize at the end. You're just doing your job, right? So, Peter, tell us a little bit about, the number of patches released every day. I mean, there's tons of them, right?
Yeah, it's crazy how many, vulnerabilities are addressed, right? There's a lot of software out there. So you think about maybe just looking at Microsoft as one example, right? They have both their operating system patches, and then they also have their patches for their applications like Office or .NET or on and on and on. So just one company out there has so many patches. They do have a great schedule. So every month, Microsoft is out there, what they call the Patch Tuesday, releasing a lot of security bulletins and kind of addressing those vulnerabilities. Most months, that's going to be 100 critical patches. But that's just the critical patches, right? They also have the important, moderate, and low levels. So a lot of different severity to their patches also. And they can be out of band, or some of those recommended or optional patches are coming out whenever. So there's a lot going on. And that's just Microsoft. Now you got Adobe, Apple, and all the other vendors and the applications that you're running on your computers. There's a lot of patches coming out every day. And it is a game of whack-a-mole, right? You're always trying to stay ahead of it, trying to understand what's going on and get those patches, out there deployed and reducing that security risk as fast as you can. It's almost impossible to get to 100%. And even if you did, the next day, you're back below that because there's some new patches that have came out. So again, having the automation, having a tool that's going to give you that visibility and again, the ability to kind of remediate that is very key. But as you were saying earlier, Travis, you also need the people, a process, and a procedure to actually get those out there and deployed so you can stay ahead of that. Unfortunately, there's no prize, like you said, but the big prize here is staying secure, because if you do get an incident does happen, that could be quite costly, as we learned with some recent things with the pipeline and other things, or just to your company's brand. So while there's no prize, it's definitely best to get that security in there and kind of reduce your footprint so that you're not in the news in the wrong way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the challenges there too, when it comes to managing your risk in regards to patching, is that there's different severities, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to think about, okay, I definitely want to focus on that critical ones first and get those out there. But again, you got to understand where's your risk, right? We're going to tell you here at Automox that you're missing these patches, but somebody like Overwatch is going to go in there and say, yeah, but this particular patch here, it's more, even though it's critical by the vendor, if you have this certain firewall setting in place, or if you have these other security things in place, the risk there is much lower. So you can also have that priority that is kind of gets determined by going a little bit deeper in there. So, again, there's severity from the vendors themselves. But as you go a little bit deeper and look at that, you're also going to understand where that risk is coming from, and then kind of help you build that priority in terms of which ones you want to do first. Because again, might not get everything done, but you definitely want to get the most severe ones done first.
Right. Phil, any thoughts on that you want to add before we
Absolutely. Like Peter was talking about, in an overall program, you'd call this the vulnerability management program. One, you scan, you find out what you're vulnerable to. Then you would prioritize those in your patching. You'd say, look, I have 10,000 servers, but hey, my web servers, according to Ponmon and others, is 92% of the web applications out there have vulnerability. So that's the door in, right? So we want to prioritize the door, the firewalls, the web apps, all those, and get those secure. And then we can also teach and instruct our analysts to be looking for specific types of exploits and vulnerability exploitation, so that they're prepared. They're looking for these new indications of compromise. We have hashes. We have all the other things that they feed in through our multiple 13 or 14 intelligence feeds that our analysts get in our current situation, and looking for exactly what the bad guys are trying to do. So having advanced knowledge, having a good patch system, vulnerability management, knowing where you're vulnerable and keeping your eyes on those until they're patched. And then, your firewalls. You should use firewall hygiene. You need to go in there and make sure your rules aren't stale. Make sure they're current. Make sure that you're blocking new domains until you're sure that they're good. Because the bad guys open up a new domain, and then that becomes a command and control where they're in your network and they're sending you a little love package called ransomware. So you don't want to live through that one. I've helped many companies escape those after the fact, and it's always better to do upfront with hygiene and a good vulnerability and patch management program.
Yeah, and Phil, you bring up a good point there, right? I mean, we need to definitely have a program in place. It is still a game of whack-a-mole, but unfortunately, incidents are still going to happen. And you said that you've helped some companies when they got hit with ransomware. Can you talk a little bit more about how Overwatch can help with those incidents?
Yeah, certainly. We partner with companies to help in emergency incident response. We also are watching and monitoring 24/7. We see indications of compromise. Like, for example, we get feeds from our intelligence saying that, hey, there's a new Ryuk variant that has come out, or one of the other exploits of the Eternal Blue, or whatever the actual exploit is. We automatically go into the tool both through threat feed and automated threat hunting rules that we put in the system that are custom built for these to look for any of that, to try to catch them early. The idea in security is you're not going to be 100%. We could try and hire, and everybody can do these things, but basically you want to be able to catch it quick. If you can identify and stop it quick, block the outbound communication. Once the guy got in and he got a hold of an internal system, whether laptop or server, and he's beaconing out to the bad domain to get the bad code, to let them know, hey, I got a footprint here, I got a foothold. What do I do next? Because that's really what the process is you get infected, they go back home, they phone back home to the bad domain, they get the code, they come in there, they try to elevate permissions, they try to move laterally, they try to do all these things that our systems are tuned and trained, our analysts are trained to look for, right? I mean, SMB has always been a real big tunnel to go through from side to side, moving east to west, to try to use the SMB to try to talk to other machines, right? Because the typical tools in days past didn't notice that was a bad thing, because they're trying to find out, hey, who's on my network? Who can I talk to? Who's available? File server, data server, or whatever it is. But now we have indications on those of what the bad guy looks like. So working in partnership with patching internal systems and border and edge systems, our analysts are constantly learning and training and being on the lookout for the bad guy doing what bad guys do. Get in, elevate permissions, steal data, et cetera, right? And looking for ways to encrypt systems, et cetera.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes behind that. And I think that's what, we do very well, is providing those people and those resources along with the tools and providing that easy button, right? Peter, tell us a little bit about how this all comes together as that easy button.
Yeah. So again, I mean, the title here today and what we're trying to get across is how you want to strengthen your endpoints, right? You want to get that visibility into them. You want to be able to remediate them, not just from a patch point of view, but also from any kind of security setting that you can think of. So that's kind of what we're doing here, right? We're really talking about what you want to do as a customer. And I think it's been pretty clear, right? There's a lot of moving pieces here. There's patching, there's firewalls, there's still going to be incidents. And for a customer, there's a lot to this, right? And you got to go out and hire people, and those people go out and get better jobs and leave your company. And now you're kind of stuck, right? So it's very complex, and customers are looking for that easy button. And that's kind of what we're talking about here in this slide, right? Is that with Automox and other tools, Overwatch is going to be able to provide that easy button for the end customers, because this is a lot of stuff to do to make sure that your network stays secure. And you need that easy button so that you don't have to worry about this at night, and you can actually enjoy your weekends.
Yeah. You gotta be able to rest and relax on the weekends for sure. So, it's great. Phil, tell me a little bit about some of the other Overwatch services that are offered to help strengthen endpoints and help them manage that risk better.
Well, our portfolio is growing all the time, right? We're adding zero trust, we're adding vulnerability management, enhancing what we already have, the SentinelOne EDR. And I can't stress enough for people to put something on the endpoint, whatever you can afford. We have a really good offering for SentinelOne that matches real well into our system. We have custom configurations, all the good stuff for it. But you can't think, I mean, it doesn't matter if you have Splunk, QRadar, or any of the brand name stuff, Sumo Logic, all of those. Well, no matter what you have, if you don't have something on the endpoint detecting, watching, then no SOC analyst in the world is going to know what's happening, because you have no visibility. So we got to make sure that we have a holistic system, and our engineers and architects will work with any of the partners and their customers on what it looks like, what you need to end-to-end protection. You can't just, put one particular thing in there, like put in a firewall and don't tune it, right? You have to go in and have a concentrated, dedicated approach in protecting the endpoint, making sure it's up to date and tuned. Configurations, like Peter was talking about, the CIS benchmark is a real good way to look at that kind of thing as mapping it, right? And then using Automox to help with those configurations. Then you need the eyes on glass, and you need a somebody after we detect and we come back with remediation. Unless you've enabled the automation of the SOAR capabilities to automatically block IPs and disable accounts, some customers have opted to want to do that themselves. And being a CISO in a healthcare organization before, I didn't want to trust somebody outside my environment to be messing around with Active Directory and accounts, right? I mean, HIPAA doesn't like that too much, right? So what you have to do is you figure out, you have a game plan. So you work together with us as a trusted partner and a trusted advisor on what we recommend and then what risk you want to allow us to have, because it's really about risk management. And it's sharing the risk. It's like when you buy an insurance policy, you're transferring the risk to the insurance guy, but you really still own it. So we want to make sure that you understand what part of the process that we help you solve, which usually it has to do with scale, right? I mean, hundreds and hundreds of servers are hard for one guy to take care of. You can't have 1,000 servers in a data center, expect one engineer to handle. But Automox will help with the patching and all the other endpoint the things that we've talked about. But you got to keep your eye on risk moving forward and try to identify what the bad guy's up to.
So, Peter, tell us a little bit about security operations and IT operations. What's the difference there and the tools they're using?
Yeah, this is kind of a great way to kind of go a little bit deeper because, again, there's multiple layers to this, right? So in terms of IT operations, that's kind of where Automox fits in, right? We're the tool that's actually going to be deploying the patches or the configuration change. We're going to be the tool that's going to be able to allow you to harden those endpoints, and then also the tool that's going to be reactive. But you also need to have a team and the security team kind of going in there and understanding where those risks are coming from. You guys mentioned SentinelOne, a great product that we're partnering with, and that's a new age kind of tool, right? And the security ops teams have gotten these tools, these newer tools like SentinelOnes and other EDR tools over the last couple of years. A space that I've been into also, that next generation, and really providing a lot more data around threat hunting and really understanding what are the risks that are out there. And then usually security ops is going to go ask IT ops to actually go do the work. Right? So, we want to make that a little bit easier for security ops, right? This is kind of a back and forth a little bit. We don't want to leave doors open, so we want to make sure that IT ops is pushing out patches with Automox, for example, or if security ops comes back and says, hey, wait a minute, we got to make this policy a little bit stronger, then IT ops has that tool to kind of do that. So there are multiple teams here that are involved that have to work together. And the great news is, a tool like SentinelOne is fantastic at finding those threats and helping companies find those, or partners find those for their customers. But on the IT ops side, it hasn't been moving as quickly. As I mentioned earlier, multiple tools for, one tool for patching Windows, another tool for Mac, a third one for Linux, for example, right? So a lot of things going on, very complex. And that's what we're trying to do here on the IT ops side with Automox, is give you that next generation tool for both the patching and the configuration management so that our customers and our partners can bridge this gap together and work together and try to get this all secure as fast as we can.
Bill, any thoughts on that real quick?
I think he hit all the high points there. It's a team effort, right? When we partner with companies like Automox and our end customers and our channel partners, we're each carrying a little bit of the water ourselves because it's easier to have buckets in multiple people's hands than try to carry the swimming pool by yourself. So we go in there and we negotiate, we agree on what we're good at and what we are experts at, and the partners as well. And we have a communication and playbooks, run books. Those are vital, critical. You look at those and you do a risk assessment all the time, continuously evaluating your risk posture and your appetite. How much risk can you handle? And then who is supposed to do the work? And once that's identified and well-oiled, that can scale across thousands of endpoints and partners because everybody understands their role in their place, and they're able to pass the information. So I think really what we're talking about is everybody being informed. So an EDR informs us on the endpoint. Automox informs us on the successful patch percentages and what is patched and what isn't. A vulnerability scanner will tell us, hey, this configuration just isn't quite what it should be, and here's a new release. You get lots of artificial intelligence feeds that we get saying, hey, the bad guys have pivoted slightly. We have a new variant on this ransomware that hadn't been seen before. Because in all reality, if you take a bad, like TrickBot or some other kind of malware that's out there, it only takes a small tweak before the Sentinel-1s and others that basically looking at the signature before it's a new variant, it's a new thing. So then you have to fall back on, well, how do we detect it now? Well, you look at behavior, you look at end user behavior, you look at time of day. One of the big things that we detect in the SOC all the time is impossible travel. I can't log in from Illinois today and in 15 minutes I'm logging in from California. I don't care how fast I run or fly. I can't get there. So those are the kind of indications I'm talking about. It's behavior, time of day, and our systems learn that part of the machine learning is also the user behavior. All of those are informing us to make better risk decisions and to inform the customer, because everybody's going to get overwhelmed. If we open the floodgates, you're overwhelmed with the amount of information. We need to distill that down into actionable things that we can handle, that the partner can handle, the end customer can handle. And then together, those three legs of that stool make it solid. And we're good to go from that point.
Definitely. Well, we're getting close to the end here. And we've got a lot of questions from the audience. We've got a very interactive audience. So I want to make sure and leave time for that. But I think it's important to talk about automation. Everyone's looking for ways to automate, and Automox has some ways to do that right out of the box, right, Peter?
Yeah. So again, we talked a lot about the patch management, but we also talked about the configuration management and how we kind of achieve that goal too. And it's something that we call worklets, right? It's in the Windows world, it's us deploying a PowerShell script. There's going to be some eval code there, make sure that everything is right, the prereqs, and then actually take that action. Well, that's great, but not everybody is familiar with PowerShell, right? And there's a lot of different ways that you can implement that. Now, Overwatch, your team is great at it. I'm sure you can create scripts, and you create scripts all the time, and you can do that. But now you have two things going on. One, you have an environment where you can actually upload those scripts and put them into a worklet and add the policies around that. Hey, I want to deploy this. I want to do it at this certain time. And I want to make sure that every day, whatever policy I created with that script stays in place. So now you have that continuous metric to kind of make sure that everything is in there. But here's the other cool thing, kind of what we were talking about earlier, is that it takes a lot of people to put this all together to have the best security policy that's going on. And we have something called a community. We have a community where users can go in there and they can share the scripts or worklets that they have created. Now, the good news here is that we do vet these, right? So as they come in, we look at them. We, sometimes reach back out to that author. We add in some more clarification, documentation, what this does, and then we publish it for everybody in the community. We have our own team that's going out there and creating worklets and kind of giving that out there for everybody to use. So for our direct customers and for our partners, you have a whole library of worklets that are ready to go today. So you don't have to sit there and reinvent the wheel. But it also allows us to do something very interesting and start thinking out of the box. About a year ago, when the pandemic hit, we had one of our customers was struggling. Some of his users were complaining that their applications were not working the way they worked when they're on that same laptop and back in the office. And, the reality here is that, kind of like with my house, right? I have a 2-story house with an office in the basement. When I kind of move things around a little bit, things were a little bit slow for me because my access point and my cable router actually come in at the second floor. And the Wi-Fi speed down here wasn't that great. Now I could figure things out. I made the improvements, but you can imagine what was happening a year ago. you had IT departments, direct customer supporting things, or even organizations like yourselves saying, how do we fix this? How do we figure out what's going on at somebody's house? You can't really do a house call and take a look and make those suggestions or put new equipment in. So we had one person actually created a worklet, a PowerShell script that would actually test the Wi-Fi speed and pull those results, over a 24-hour period right back into the Automox console, nice and secure. And he can go take a look at that. And he can get a feel for, hey, what is the Wi-Fi speed? What's going on? And what he did in his environment is focus on the top 10 of employees that had the worst Wi-Fi speed, and was able to talk with them and understand that, they haven't updated their cable modem in more than 15 years. They haven't, they're not on the latest Wi-Fi technology, and they're certainly pretty far away from that access point. So it was a way to use a worklet and a script to get more information, kind of outside a little bit of the security space, but a little bit more interesting, right? And kind of get that information to make that end user more productive. And that's just one example of how the community can help both our partners and our customers not just achieve what you need to do today, but also start getting these ideas and already have it built and ready to go for some little more of those edge cases that help with security.
Wow. Yeah, I think leveraging the security community is really powerful. It's a fantastic community. We're all in it together, fighting cybercrime. We're all like little miniature cyber crime fighters, right? So you kind of created a justice league of cyber crime fighters there to help each other out. That's really cool. So let's go to Q&A just because we do have some great questions. We had several questions about Automox and is it agent based? How does that work?
Yeah, so we are agent based, right? It's a very lightweight agent. I mean, I know that there's a lot of agent overload out there, and customers are concerned about that. At the same point, though, we are cloud-based, right? So we have to have some way to connect securely back to the console. Also, when you're talking about both patch management and configuration change, you don't want to have the user have all the rights, right? It's that zero trust kind of concept. So you want to limit what the user can do to the point where maybe they can't make a change, where they can't run a PowerShell. So you need some way that you can control that and still do that action. And an agent-based technology allows you to do that because the agent can run as a system admin in terms of its service. And then you still have the user protected, so you don't have that concerns there. And that agent gives you a chance to protect all of those pieces so the hackers can't take advantage of that.
Another question we got are either of these services, Automox or Overwatch, using NIST, DISA, CIS, or other standards to define the model?
Yeah, so here at Automox, we're not, right? We can help you hit those achievement things, but yeah, we're just focused really on CVEs, the Common Vulnerability Exploit. So you have all that information, and then it's up to the customer or the partner to actually implement kind of that strategy. Phil, did you want to go a little bit deeper on that and what you guys do at Overwatch?
Sure. Our platform, it follows the kill chain, but basically if you dig in deeper, there's tiles underneath in the dashboard for each of those frameworks. All those are really is putting a certain types of things like identity and access management, all these other things in buckets, right? So NIST, the 800 series, and high trust for healthcare, CIS 20, all of those. We have a matrix, and each of the sales engineers and account executives have this matrix that I've given them that shows, I think there's 30 or 40 different frameworks and how they all cross map. So the answer is yes, that we map to those, but we don't come out and say, we are NIST, CSF certified or any of those kind of things, because we have to be agnostic in that we're across the board. We look at all of the things, and all of our rules capture the things like authentication access, right? That goes across multiple frameworks. data loss prevention. We use what Microsoft has, and we take event codes and stuff out of Microsoft, but also other platforms out there that talk about DLP, right? And we go across each one of the areas. So if you take and break up the 60 or 70 different areas in this, the 160 something, I think in our SOC 2, 164 controls that we manage, et cetera, we cover them all. But and we can actually have custom reports for each customer, like for our healthcare customers. We have an automatic report that sends out what they need to know for their auditors, et cetera. So the answer is yes, but it's not like push a button, here's your NIST assessment. It's more about here's HIPAA, here's what we've done, here's how that goes, right? Not that we couldn't develop and build one, but the controls go across multiple frameworks, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, and then give you a NIST assessment. Then they Arizona. So 2 quick questions we can knock out, and then one we can spend the rest of our time on. One was, what OS do you cover, and does Automox have reporting?
Yeah, so we're focused on the desktop and server side. So we're covering, Windows 7, Windows 10, any future, desktop version of Windows we'll definitely be covering. And then also on the server side, right? So, Windows server operating systems, we're going to be covering those too. We can also do, environments up in the cloud. So if they're, physical, they're virtual or hosted up in the cloud, doesn't matter where those endpoints are in terms of Windows, we're covered there. And the same goes true for the Mac and the Linux, right? Those are the other 2 OSs that we cover, the Mac OS and then various distros on the Linux side. And then in terms of reporting, yes. So we, reporting's a tough because everybody wants slightly different reporting. So what we've done is kind of 2 approaches here. We kind of give you some basic reporting, kind of the reporting that, everybody needs is right in the console. You can also get information from the dashboard and all that. And then we also have the ability to do data extract. We mentioned Splunk earlier, or Skybox and other kind of programs where you might want to bring data into that. So that's a possibility with API calls, or you can just do a data extract and kind of bring the data from Automox into a business intelligence tool. So Microsoft, Power BI from our product, and then maybe some other products, and really do that kind of minimization of the data to get the reporting that that customer needs. And I know that you guys can also provide reporting and pull information from the dashboard and our reporting and the data extract to put that all together for your clients.
Absolutely. Well, we've got about 2 minutes left, so I just wanted to wrap up, give you each a minute to share any final thoughts. Phil, you want to go first?
Sure. I want to say, thank you for Automox joining us in this venture today. And it was great meeting and talking with you, Peter. And I want to remind the people out there that what Automox gives us is there's 10 steps to a patch cycle, right? All the way from discovery, all the way around the loop, back to doing it all over again the next month. So remember that the way to find weaknesses and gaps is to automate it and to build resiliency into your systems so that you can focus on the things that are harder. Patch management using Automox makes it easy. So then you can focus on threat hunting, you can focus on all the other things that you need to do, while Automox, as our trusted partner, will handle the patch management part for you.
Yeah, and picking up on that, right? Patch management, it might not be the most exciting thing in the world, but it's an important thing to do, right? It's just like locking your front door. It's pretty basic and simple and not very interesting, but it really reduces your target surface by a lot. And, it isn't kind of a game of whack-a-mole, but it's an important game to play. And automation and a great partner like Overwatch to provide that service and deliver that for your customers is a key thing to strengthen your endpoint security.
Yeah, and just remember, there's about 20,000 security patches a year. So that's a lot of work. Heavy lifting for the server admins.
Yep, and that's just for each computer, right? So as you multiply that, you're getting into the millions very quickly.
There you go. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you, Travis. Thank you, Phil. Great being here.